How's it going, Pack 66? I hope everyone is doing very, very well. I know that we are in kind of a strange situation, but there are things we can do at home to make the best of it. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to make a fire because the weather's getting nice, spring is coming, and hopefully as a family we can get together and sit around campfires, tell stories, roast some marshmallows, maybe even make some s'mores and have a really good time in this difficult time that the world is going through right now. So let's see what we got. Alright guys, so the first thing we want to do is collect enough firewood. Fire eats a lot of fuel, and that fuel is going to be wood. We have to start nice and small before we can get up to the big stuff. You can't just start with a big log and try to take a match with it. It just won't go. The fire needs to eat as small of pieces of wood as you can find. So we're going to start like this, and pretty much the scouting rule is you get a pile about that big that you can fit into like a grocery bag, and when you think that's enough, it's never enough. So we come over here and you want to double it. So these are going to be our 2 pile of starter wood, but we also need some kindling, and then we want to get up to the bigger pieces of wood that are going to be over here. But that's only after we get that fire going. It's got to be nice and hot to be able to eat pieces of wood that big. Now, of course, before we start playing with fire, we want to make sure our parents are there just in case. We want to make sure we have plenty of water available in case anything goes wrong. So I've got buckets, I've got the hose right next to me, we should be good. But what I want to start off with is just understanding why we need the different sizes of wood. Because I can take this, which is just a lighter. Come on now, lighter. There we go. And I can try and light this piece of wood. This is just not happening. So I can try to light this piece of wood with a match. It'll go, and the match just won't cut it. The wood is too big. I think we'd even have problem lighting this piece of wood with a match. So we want to go something smaller. So a trick that I always use that works very, very well is to bring some dryer lint with me whenever I go camping. I keep it in kind of a waterproof container. This is an old brass container, and this is just dryer lint that I pick out of the dryer. The cool thing about dryer lint is it is so small that it will go up with a match, with a spark, pretty much with anything. So this is kind of a guaranteed way to at least get a fire going. The problem when you have stuff this fine is that it goes really quick. So we have to be ready to move fast, and that's where we take our littles, the pencil-sized pieces of wood, and we have to drop it right on top very quickly. Heat goes up, so we want to make sure that this is at our base, and we put the littles on top of that to catch fire very quickly, and then we can build from there. But you'll see when we start the process, this goes very, very fast. The other thing you want to keep in mind is you want the wood to be nice and dry. That's not always possible, but you want it to sound like this when you crack it. Did you see that nice, it didn't stick on, there's no life left in this wood. So it should burn nice and quick and strong and get nice and hot for us. When you have wet wood, it can burn if you have a really hot fire, but it takes a long time to dry out that wood before it can really ignite. So you want it to always have that nice snap. This one might be a little bit live, and you see how, number one, it didn't snap all the way. It still has a little piece. It does have a nice snap, but I kind of have to twist it off, and so this still has some life in it. I don't think it's going to work that well for us, so I'm just going to throw that away. Just to give you a sense of how quickly and how easily the dryer lint can ignite, this is the dryer lint right here. I'm going to strike a match and just watch what happens. See, so that just took to the fire, but now watch how quick it goes. It's not a very hot fire. That's the problem. So that's why we need to take our littles and be ready with a whole bunch, because that dryer lint is basically all burned right now. We might get a little bit of time. I did get those matchsticks going, but that's why we have to move fast with a whole bunch of little tiny sticks on top of our kindling. Kindling is what I'm going to use the term for the dry island, and that's the really ignitable, combustible fire pieces that can start our fire, but we have to be ready with those other pieces right away. Alright guys, so what I've done so far is I've made a few more feather sticks. You know, each wood is going to be a little bit different. Like if you get a nice piece of pine, that'll be nice and soft and you can make some beautiful feather sticks. This is just some scrap wood I had in the backyard. So it did fine. It did fine. But we've got our feather sticks, we've got our dryer lint, we've got our small bundles here that I'm going to put on top that should catch nice and quickly because they're all small pieces of wood. And that should be good. But I have a few options to start my fire with. Okay, I have got the lighter, which is kind of boring. I've got my matches, which is pretty good. I've also got my fire steel. And so today I'm going to try and light the fire with my fire steel. Why? Because we can usually always start a fire with a lighter. It's fuel, the flame is there, it's somewhat water resistant, but you can run out of flame, and we're trying to practice and build our skills, so that's kind of cheating. Matches are great. We used to have a rule in Cub Scouts where you were considered proficient in making a fire when you could start an entire fire with one match, so that was pretty good. But since it's a beautiful day, it's nice and warm, I want to try my skills. I'm going to start this fire with a fire steel. The trick with that is you need another. So this is ferrocerium. It's a type of iron, I guess. And if you run something harder than the ferrocerium rod, it scrapes off pieces of this material, and it does so, and it gets really hot. And so this is a stainless steel Spyderco knife. I am going to run this along the blade, and it is going to throw sparks. And that's how the sparks are not really hot enough to start the wood, but they are hot enough to start a fire in the dryer lint. So let's give that a whirl. Alright, now the other thing I should say, I'll show you how the sparks work. You know, as long as it's nice and hot, you should be able to throw a lot of sparks. The spine of this blade happens to be nice and sharp. You should never do it with the blade of the knife. That'll destroy your blade. You don't want to do that. You'll have to spend a lot of time sharpening it. So I'm going to use the back of the knife to start the fire. The other thing you want to do is you want to get the ferro rod in nice and tight and actually pull the rod back. That's a little bit easier than using the blade because you're kind of throwing sparks with the blade. And the other thing too is it focuses where the sparks are going to hit my kindling. So I'm going to give it a whirl. There we go, the fire started. And hopefully those feather sticks, you see how nicely they're catching. And now what I can do is take some of my littles and put it on top of that flame. And now this is kind of the critical part in the fire because we have our kindling going, but it's not going to last forever. But you can see the feather sticks going. I'm taking my littles, putting it on, and as soon as you start to hear the crackles, that's where you know we're doing a good job. Okay, so the crackles means that the wood is going, and we're doing all right. We're doing all right here, but we've got to get this flame nice and hot so that we can start putting some of the bigger logs on it. So this is going all right. Again, this is where we do want to have a parent with the Scout here just because it is an open flame. And you don't want to smother it either. You know, fire needs two things to burn. It needs the fuel, which is our wood. It also needs air. So you don't want to pack the fire too tight to starve it. You do want to let it breathe. And that's our fire. It's going pretty well. It's going pretty well. I think we did a good job. So the keys to being successful with fire is preparation. It's all about preparation. You want to spend time finding dry wood. You want to get enough littles so that you can start the fire well, and you always want to make sure you have kindling with you whenever you go camping. It's really hard to find super dry, fine stuff. So I don't think there's anything better than dry lint. Well, I take that back. Dry lint with Vaseline is incredible, and that'll get the dry lint to burn a little bit longer. So I think we're doing all right here, guys. This fire is nice and hot. We hear the snap of the wood. The wood is nice and dry. Everything seems to be catching pretty nicely. So I'm gonna go and start putting some bigger stuff on, because I think the fire is hot enough where it can handle it. And then you can see in here that the dry lint is pretty much all gone, but some of the larger sticks, like the ones that are maybe the size of a marker instead of a pencil, are starting to go up. So we have done a decent job. I can come over here, maybe get some of these bigger guys and put them on. And now the nice thing about the bigger guys is they burn longer. But I can't take, I can't take something like this and put that in and expect it to burn. It's still a little hot for that. What a lot of people will do is kind of shore up the fire with it, let it dry out nice, and when the fire is ready, it'll start to eat that big piece of wood. So we need to prepare. We have to have our fuel ready. We want it to be the right size, and we always want to make sure that we are doing it safely. So I've got my fire pit. It's off the ground. I've got my hose over there just in case anything happened. And luckily, I have my wife with me to keep me out of trouble. So that's it, guys. I'm gonna sit and enjoy this fire and tell some stories. Actually, I lied. There is more. There is one more piece of information I want to give you, and this is just it's a scouting tradition that was passed on to me when I went to Philmont. The leader who brought me to Philmont was actually my cub master, and he's, because I was a similar age to his son, he stuck with me for my entire scouting career, and he brought us over to Philmont. So at Philmont, he gave us just a film canister of ashes. And the cool thing about these ashes is they follow campfire stories, and I have a record of where these ashes have been. And so what I'll do every time I have a campfire, I'll put it in and I'll add to that story. So these ashes stories started in 1943. They've been to Switzerland, they've been to France, they've been to Italy, and now with Pack 66, of course, they've been to Cub Parent Weekend, they've been to our June picnic, they've been to when we go to West Point, and I've been dropping them in and continuing on with that story. So I'll save the entire story of these ashes for another day, but this is a habit that I always do, where I just take these ashes, dump them into the fire, and now they'll mix with these new ashes, and then the next day I'll come back and put them back in my film canister and add to the story, and just mark down where the campfire took place, who was there maybe, and the location, and continue on with the story. And I think this is a fantastic scouting tradition. It reminds you that we're all connected. It reminds you that we all have incredible stories to tell, and it's just it's really humbling to see how far these ashes can go. And so I look forward to sharing my ashes with you. That's a really cool thing, is this little canister, I dumped it in the ashes, but now as we share campfires, we can take our own ashes, and it's a piece of that story, and it's that ash lineage that we can all enjoy. So I'll let that fire burn down. Maybe I'll get with these guys. And do you think should we roast some marshmallows or get some s'mores going, or maybe have some hot chocolate or something?
Yeah, hot chocolate.
Excellent. All right. So that's what it's about. I encourage you to sit around campfires. I encourage you to tell some stories with your families, and we'll pull through this, and I will see you all soon. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.